Sports Show, an MNC podcast production, available wherever you do your podcast downloading and broadcasting on your TV. Peterborough Lindsay from the capital PTBO on 370 George Street in downtown Peterborough. Jordan Mercier, Mark Million, Matt Latour coming up on the program today. Is Toronto too white for NBA players? Will the Blue Jays hold up their pitching for a playoff run? And why are Novak Djokovic and Rafael Nadal so hard to beat, even though they're geezers? All of that, plus your emails and fair or foul. Mark, Matt, what is going on? Busy show on the way.
There's a couple of juicy nuggets in there that I really like. I mean, the first one obviously is over the top, and Jay's pitching, but I've watched a fair amount of Wimbledon this week, or even into the last weekend. I don't understand it. I typically don't watch tennis. I generally, maybe once the big events are on,
right,
I'll have I'll tune in type thing. I don't get it with these two, like 43 years old, just running trains still on people or going to the quarterfinals.
There was a time where if you were a tennis player, Bjorn Borg era, for example, when you hit 25, 26, you were done.
That's right.
That was it. Even when you think of Pete Sampras winning the 2002 U.S. Open, I mean, he was an old man. I bet he was 31.
I was just going to say, I think he's 30 or 31.
Yeah. The first guy who's sort of defied the odds, I thought Agassi was good into his 30s, maybe a little bit more than others. But obviously, Djokovic, Federer, and Nadal, they've taken it to a whole nother level.
Agassi's, but he had the drought, right?
Yeah, he did.
Like he got to the top of the mountain and then fell off,
had addiction problems,
right? And then
much publicized story.
So came back, but in '90s tennis, I mean, how many? Monica Seles is a teenager, Jennifer Capriati is a teenager, Steffi Graf, she was a young lady. Like even Navratilova and Evert, who had a hard time leaving the game. I realize these are all on the women's side, but even then, I think Navratilova is winning doubles titles in her 30s, mid-30s.
It wasn't that long ago that you would always have at least one or two phenom teenagers on the men's side.
Yeah.
I think Nadal is probably the last one, and that's 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Where he was, winning majors at 17 and 18.
Yeah.
But before that, I know Sampras, he won the U.S. Open, I think, at 18. So he was extremely young. But now it seems like until they're 21, 22, they're not really bona fide challengers, and yet they're staying even later. You know what I mean?
It's interesting. It's interesting to even give that any sort of credence or thought at all, is that the three guys at the top, right? And I mean, for whatever purpose you want to, in any particular order, depending on where they're playing. The fourth, I wouldn't even know who the fourth is. The drop off is Andy Murray.
Yeah.
And Murray's a guy who now he's, that's
just a guy,
like just
injured, hip injury, whatever. He had more of your standard career where he hit a certain point and that was it. He would be the fourth guy of the era, but it's a dramatic drop off. I think he only ended up with 3 slams. He made it to a bunch of finals.
That's right.
He was number one player in the world for a minute.
Yeah.
But after that, Stan Wawrinka also had 3 slams. Other than that, it's a bunch of one-offs.
Yeah.
It's Marin Cilic, it's Juan Martín del Potro, just sort of lightning in a bottle type guys.
Who was the Canadian kid?
Milos Raonic.
Oh, yeah, Raonic.
Who's now 31, and I mean, he's like 300th in the world because he's barely played.
But didn't Raonic overnight age a decade?
Yeah.
Like it seemed honestly like he was 22 and, getting to the third round or getting to the fourth round or getting to the quarterfinal, semifinal of the Rogers Cup. Then now he's 31.
I mean, for him, the only thing he had going for him for a while was the serve.
Yeah. Well, that was the introductory piece for him. And he was going to be a more well-rounded player than John Isner or an Ivo Karlovic. But that being said, and he did well. Like, he made a Wimbledon final. He made
final
some
2016,
right?
Quarterfinal French Open 2014, semifinal Aussie Open in 16.
Yeah, it just like a lot of guys, when you go back on that list and you think of the Joe Wilfred Tsongas and these guys who are really good players, unfortunately, there were 3 who were insanely good. Can I just say how I'm excited I am that we're starting off with the Wimbledon train? I didn't think we got emails coming later, so maybe we just want to push pause. But tennis has actually become the sport that I pay attention to. I'd say the most, like pretty close, like still big into baseball and hockey, of course, but I absolutely love this time of year with the French Open right into Wimbledon. Super excited. Matt Latour, Habs fan. You're on the clock. Where do they go with the number 1 overall pick? If you are watching this on your TV, of course, it does rerun a couple of other times. So we do not know who has gone first in the NHL draft. Now, all of a sudden, there's a little bit of whispers. Maybe they're not going to go towards Shane Wright. Bob McKenzie came out with his final ranking, and he decided to go in a different direction with the winger from Slovakia, who I want to say is Burakovsky.
Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, because I think I think Logan Cooley's the other North American kid.
Slavkovsky.
Yes.
I think they got to go Shane Wright, honestly. Because we've seen a couple European guys go, top 3 in the draft and they kind of fizzle out. It seems like the North American guys stick around a little bit longer, or at least develop a little bit better into the NHL. And I mean, I've liked Shane Wright since he was exceptional status with Kingston. So now they get to draft him first overall. Sure, he's maybe not the exceptional status player that McDavid or Tavares was, but I mean, he's still pretty damn good.
Is that just because he had a year where, and let's keep in mind, let's put context on the fact that his junior hockey career is going to look a little bit different because of the pandemic, because of the shutdowns. Mm-hmm. Not only just gameplay, but I'm sure that impacted training levels and whatever. And that's not his fault. That's not the league's fault. That's just the way it needed to be. But is it because the stock dropped because he didn't have this 60-goal, 130-point type season?
I mean, he still had 94 points in 63 games, which
still
is pretty
good.
It's a pretty good season.
Sure.
But I think so, especially when you're exceptional status. I mean, Sean Day was kind of a dud. Aaron Ekblad, obviously not a dud. He's number 1 overall pick, but
they don't miss very often with the exceptional status, right?
No, not really.
Spets is there. Tavares is there.
Yeah.
You don't miss too often. I think one thing that, and strangely for Shane Wright, I think that a little bit of his spotlight was taken by next year's guy, by Bedard. Mm-hmm. Had a way above average World Junior Hockey Championship. Lots of praise about being kind of the next one.
Yeah.
But Wright, they had a great piece on during the Memorial Cup where they kind of interviewed the coach and some of the guys in his team, and he seems like the type of guy that's got his head on his shoulders.
Yeah,
he's very much a team first sort of guy, which is probably reflected in what he scored 32 goals, but he got 94 points. But he seems, the coach is coming out pretty high praise, like he's good at everything. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I don't know, not everybody's good at everything. If he was a better goal scorer, he'd have put 50 goals up in the OHL. It's not the Quebec League where guys 50 goal scorers grow on trees. I'm not sure, but it's interesting. I'm not a big Montreal for some reason has a deeper, richer history with Europeans that have actually managed to cross the divide and be very strong NHL players as opposed to North American kids, or certainly French-Canadian
kids.
Well,
I always thought that Montreal is a perfect landing ground for some of these players from Europe because it's a very European culture type city. We'll talk about Toronto and how that factors in the NBA coming up a little bit later on in the program. But I think Montreal runs the risk of overthinking this.
I think you look at it, you mentioned Montreal's always had some pretty decent European players. How many cups have they won with those decent European players? 0.
Oleg Petrov.
Mats Naslund.
I mean,
don't stand on disrespect with Mats.
At some point, you got to, I think, switch it up. And it's been, 30 years almost since their last Stanley Cup? Clearly, something's not working. I love Thomas Plekanec, but we don't need...
Turtleneck Tom?
We don't need more European players.
Hey, easy.
Like Don Cherry. Holy.
Yeah. Here we were going to have...
Just switch it up.
Here we were going to have Saku Koivu in here for our first inaugural signing. You won't be in line for that?
I love Saku Koivu, one of my favorite players of all time. Never won a thing.
Here's what I think. I think Montreal runs the risk of maybe overthinking it a little bit. There's a lot I like about Shane Wright. Craig Button said the comparables, Patrice Bergeron. If you're expecting someone to come in and be that 50-goal, 120-point guy, probably not it.
Sure, you can pass.
But you're going to have somebody who's going to be good at every facet of the game down the middle of your lineup for 15 years. It's maybe a little bit of fatigue when you get a player with exceptional status and he's more scrutinized probably than just about everybody else. He's also a centerman versus a winger. I think that's important because I like to build down the middle of the team. And I think because all of a sudden there's a little bit of conversation over who is going to be the first overall pick. I've seen that light a fire under Shane Wright, at least publicly, where he has come out in several different interviews, almost like convincing Montreal, no, I'm the best player.
Yeah.
Like, don't kid yourself. Like, you can get distracted in Europe with a guy who put up a lot of points, but I'm the best player in this draft. And I like that because you need a little bit of that healthy ego, no doubt about it, especially when you go first overall.
You would be particularly underwhelmed, like I would be, when you look at the points that these guys have put up, these three that we're talking about, Cooley and
Shane Wright,
Slavkovsky, like 10 points in 31 games.
That's playing in a pro league.
I understand it's playing in a pro league, so I'm not sure necessarily. But, I mean, even last year he played 11 games in the junior pro league. He scored 18 points.
Yeah.
He's a big kid, 6'4", 229. That doesn't grow on trees.
No.
But same with the Cooley kid. It's hard to get, I don't know, maybe for me, and I'm not Craig Button, and I'm not Bob, and I'm not any of these guys.
Bobby Margarita.
I'm not Bob Margarita. But, like, Cooley's also played with the National Development Program.
Yeah.
In the U.S. So I'm not sure what the quality of competition is like. I'm not sure about the 3 games and 3 nights like you get in the OHL or you get in, CHL hockey, where it's a grind. You get those 800-kilometer bus trip weekends, 1,000-kilometer bus trip weekends. I think that does something different to you. And I think if you can perform on top of that, I think it makes it a little bit. For me, I think Shane Wright is it. I haven't heard anything on Cooley, unfortunately, that good or bad. I just think that the kid that's got the grind, he's already understands the rigor. He's had a decent Memorial Cup. He's not going to be the flashy guy.
Yeah.
He's not going to be the number 1 pick that wows. He's not.
I think the problem with guys getting drafted when they play pro over in Europe, like Austin Matthews played pro in Switzerland.
That's right, yeah.
And then jump over to the NBA. Luka Doncic is a perfect example. These guys, their gameplay maybe is a little bit matured, so the numbers are going to be less because you're playing with guys older than you.
It's true.
Like Austin Matthews, I think in Switzerland, put up 45 points in 35 games, which by Austin Matthews standards is nothing.
Sure.
But for an 18-year-old playing in a pro league, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, my father, who's actually a diehard Montreal Canadian fan, he's on the Shane Wright wagon. He just thinks 2 + 2 = 4. Maybe lightning in a bottle, you get a little bit more offensive output from the winger. But that being said, he believes in a strong centerman who's going to be good for the team. But once upon a time, he was lobbying in the 2003 NBA draft. He was making this same argument that you just talked about, Matt. He said, boy, LeBron James is going to be really good, but man, this Darko Milicic, he's 17. He's playing against, Russian men over there. And boy, that was not good. And I've never let him forget that he actually was interested in taking Darko Milicic in the first round or the first overall pick in the NBA draft.
And I think the Habs at left wing maybe a little bit deeper. I mean, they're not really deep anywhere, but on the left wing, you get Drouin and Hoffman. At center, you've really just got Suzuki.
There's a kid, and I know the Habs won't do it, but I think you can reach on this kid. Just remember, don't
tell me you're taking Gary Roberts first overall in the 2022 draft.
You wait until you hear the feedback on Roberts. Trust me. We don't talk about Hugo. There's a kid, a European goaltender named Hugo Havelid. Just remember I told you about this kid. He's a Swede? I think he's a Swede.
Yep.
His numbers, pretty good. He's 5'10". He's a small goaltender, so he's like Jimmy Howard territory. Like, he's lit Mike Vernon.
Big game James.
But this kid's going to fill in that one day, and the old Habitants, they're going to need a guy. So who's there now?
He's not even the top-ranked European goalie.
He's the second. The other kid, look at the other kid. The other kid's a jobber.
So Pius Lainen, 6'5", 235 pounds.
Yeah, sure.
A little bit more of the mold.
Okay, yeah, and look at his save percentage. What is he, 910? Jeepers.
916?
Should be 930 just based on how much square
Hugo's
feet.
920. It's not that much higher.
920 is 5'10". It's like putting Mercier in there.
I don't care I care about the save percentages.
That's it, right?
It's pretty much even.
Pretty much even with 6 inches less length. And trust me, kids, that matters.
I don't think we're going to have a goaltender first overall. When's the last time? That was probably Marc-Andre Fleury.
No,
right?
DiPietro. Oh, yeah, Fleury, but
Fleury
DiPietro
right
was the
after.
first.
That hasn't happened in a long time.
No.
The modern analytic game says that that's not a valued pick.
I'm just saying.
Yes.
I also qualified it by saying you can probably reach and get him later. We don't talk about Hugo.
I thought you were reaching from first for him.
No.
I was like, that is crazy.
No.
I'm going to love the fact that it's back in person for the first time since 2019. Of course, it's been remote. I think it's only fitting that it's in Montreal. Montreal has the first overall pick. That is going to be the topic, gentlemen, for your mano-a-mano showdown at the end of the show, and that is National Hockey League first overall draft picks.
Ooh.
So in case you're new to the program, we shuffled up the quiz a little bit. I'm going to get the master list of all the number one draft picks of all time. And for some reason, in the first go-round, we decided 2 strikes. I think 3 strikes probably makes more sense.
I think we were pressed up against the clock.
Yeah.
Let's get. I want a keystroke logger on Latour.
I'll put my hands up the whole time.
What do you mean? You already typed it in.
What are you talking about?
He's doing some pre-research.
I'm looking at Juraj
already.
Slafkovsky over here, pal.
Yeah, look at Hugo Havlet.
Another couple of more hockey notes here. The Oilers might be interested in Claude Giroux.
Yeah, this is interesting.
Is this the guy you want to bring in? Veteran hand, been there, done that, had some deep playoff runs. Maybe he's got a little bit of gas in the tank, give you 50 points, 55 points, responsible 2 ways. I mean, to me, it's a very Ken Holland type signing.
It
As
is
a Detroit fan, I watched this year after year, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. Modano, Alfredson, didn't always work. But this seems to be in the Holland DNA of we need to get some sandpaper guys near the end of their career.
You know what the difference is, though, is that I thought that Giroux, there was no effect on the Florida Panthers, and I thought that for a team that thought maybe that their opening round win was their key to the Stanley Cup final, there wasn't anything there that showed me that Giroux had any sort of effect on the Panthers laying down like house cats against Tampa Bay. When Kenny did it, Kenny's bringing guys into the room where you already had an Yzerman in the room even before he won. He was still, highly, highly respected, 500 goal scorer already, started that conversion. You had Scott Bowman behind the bench. You have Jay Woodcroft and, you've got Connor and Leon. I think the difference here, and Kenny would, I'm sure, understand this, but maybe I think this is a good segue here for Edmonton. I think it's now more a destination than maybe it's been ever. I think there was a lot of eyes opened with the amount of points that those 2 guys put up on the board in 3 rounds and thought, holy smokes, these kids are close. Guys that watch the pros, and like anybody, like any fan, but guys that watch pro hockey, that play pro hockey, they understand, they understand the shortcomings of, the goaltender or the defense or something like that. But I guarantee there's guys that are hitting free agency that are telling their agents, listen, let's crawl in Edmonton and see what Kenny's up to.
I agree with what you said in the fact that, and I don't think it was Claude Giroux's fault, but, I mean, the Panthers go out and get him. He comes in. He's supposed to be maybe the missing piece of the puzzle, and then you go out with such a whimper in the second round of the playoffs. Yeah. That's obviously very disappointing. And I don't think he had a particularly strong playoff. But again, I think this goes to the Ken Holland DNA. We mentioned Alfredson. This happened last week. Now, we had a special interview with Dave Dixon on the air on your TV. Mm-hmm. So we didn't get the opportunity to weigh in on the new 6-member class of the Hockey Hall of Fame. We've got Daniel Alfredson, Roberto Luongo, Daniel Sedin, Henrik Sedin. We got Herb Carnegie, who's going to be inducted into the builder category, and Riikka Salonen, who was a superstar out of Finland on the female side of the game. Obviously, we won't be able to break her numbers down the way that we will the others, but is this a Hall of Fame class? Is this a Hall of Pretty Good class? Are you comfortable with all of these names getting enshrined in Toronto?
I like the introductory, not introductory. I like the inclusion of the women's game.
Yep.
Certainly. I like the fact that it's not always Canadians and Americans too, because I think that, talk about the drop off for the big 3 in tennis to get to 4. I mean, obviously you've got the 2, and then there's some of those European countries that, where the game is growing. So that's terrific. Alfredson, Okay, I look at Eric Lindros as being a almost Hall of Famer, even though he is. I look at him as being an almost, but I can see a 5-year window where he's the best player in the sport.
Yep.
And I think that's a pretty decent window to get that sort of accolade where you get consideration into the Hall of Fame. Can Alfredsson be included in that?
Olympic gold medalist?
Olympic gold medalist in a time when pros were going. I don't know.
Same gold medal as the Sedins, too, right?
Right. So the Sedins, I think I can get behind the Sedins being Hall of Famers, I think.
I don't think they get in if they're not twins with one another. I think that's kind of like the...
Was there nobody who's willing to stand up and say that Henrik had a better career than Daniel, and so they're not going to go in together?
Sure.
I always thought that.
I know.
I mean, Henrik was the Hart Trophy winner, right?
Yeah, that's right.
More of the setup man versus the goal scorer.
That's right.
But I thought he was just a better player, and it is eerie about how their numbers sort of shake out at the end of the day.
Yeah,
But
they're within like 25 points.
that being
of each
said,
other.
even at the end of their careers, I'm thinking Henrik's still got a year or two probably left. But
Sure.
instead, they have to do everything together.
Yeah,
it's really strange.
They come in together, they retire together.
I would have loved to be in that Hall of Fame room just to say, no, they're both going in. Henrik goes in first. Daniel, maybe a little bit later.
Interesting to think that would the Hall of Fame, would the members or the voting members even had that conversation? They either go in together or they don't go in at all.
Why does it? That's crazy to me. It's insane. Oh, by the way, Alfredsson, just going back.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you could make the argument that he was ever the number one center in the National Hockey League. I don't think anybody could.
Played in a tough generation.
Tough generation. You're sort of, you've got Yager and you've got Sakic and you've got, the tail end of Yzerman, Fedorov, etc.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He did make a second team All-Star once, and that was 05-06. That year was his only 100-point season. He finished 5th in Hart Trophy voting. I think that's the only time that he ever even finished in the top 10 for that.
The Sens go to the Cup final that year?
Point. The Sens go the next year.
Oh, that's right.
So this is 05-06.
05-06.
They go in 06-07, but you're building.
Yeah.
And you're making it far. What do we have here? 2 40-goal seasons. To me, the measurable stats, he comes up short. 444 goals doesn't excite me.
Yeah.
1157, a lot of points, but he also played 1,246 games,
yeah.
so you're under a point per game threshold. Do we give credit? And this is where I look at this and I go, okay, I get that, but I do give credit to a player who was the face of a franchise.
Sure.
Versus Marian Hossa, maybe? Versus that type of player that bopped around a little bit. I think Marian Hossa ultimately was a better player than Daniel Alfredsson, but I give credence to the guy who was the one having to stand up in a Canadian market, led them to some success.
Yeah.
Franchise record holder for goals, assists, points, plus minus, playoff points, playoff goals.
To me, when I watched him and I thought, I guess at the end of the day, Matt Sundin was better in totality over the course of his career. But to me, watching them both go head-to-head was, first of all, a lot of fun. Second of all, it wasn't like I noticed a dramatic gap. So when Sundin goes in as a first ballot, I think, kind of shocked me that, some of these guys on the sidelines, I'm going to make a McGillney case coming up because that one's insane to me that he's not in the Hall of Fame. But when I look at this, I mean, there's no names that jump out to me as the greatest ever. But, I mean, again, Henrik Sedin has a Hart Trophy. Daniel won a scoring title, I think, the next year, which was kind of funny.
Right.
Alfredsson, face of a franchise, brings the team to a cup final as the marquee player and the captain. And Roberto Luongo, just from start to finish, hard to believe, doesn't have a Vezina trophy.
Sure.
That's insane because I think you could still make the case. Best goalie, probably 3 or 4 years.
And I think that with Luongo, I don't think his generation, I don't think his the fish in his pond are as thick as what you would have had at Alfredsson at center.
That's true. So I'm okay with all of these members of the Hall of Fame. Biased, Zetterberg, I think he gets in. He's got a gold medal. He's got a Conn Smythe. I think that matters.
Conn Smythe matters.
He was a very good playoff performer. Again, probably underwhelms in some of the counting stats because he just didn't play that many games and he was banged up a little bit. Alex Mogilny, to me, is always going to be one that I just, scratch my head at because he was a really, really good player. And he did have the 76-goal season. He did win a Stanley Cup. You know, he was a bona fide goal scorer. I thought he was a pretty good two-way player. Really liked when he was with Toronto. I thought he was, you know, really productive with the Maple Leafs. So he did it in a marquee market as well. And, you know, I don't undersell the fact that he was a pioneer and one of the early guys to defect from the Soviet Union. I think that matters.
And I think if you look at his career in the beginning, from front to back, his best years came at the front.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. He's in that early 90s sort of everybody scoring 50, 60, 70 goals. But yeah, he defects it, and like Donnie Meehan gets him in, and you know, that's a scary time when you're a 20-year-old kid and you got to trust this guy. Like, yeah, we're going to get you here.
Nura on Facebook. It says the NHL Hall of Fame is like Junction. It lets everybody in at all times. And also says, low-key, Roberto Luongo kind of stinks.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm not going to go that far because I think his stats bear it out. But the knock on him is always going to be didn't win a cup. Wasn't very good in the cup. Like, no. Wasn't very good. Even when Canada won in Vancouver?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he didn't own the net.
Well, did he not come in and kind of like his Brodeur wasn't very good in that
one.
He
was terrible.
He kind of saved the day in net.
He did. That being said, let up a bad goal in the semifinals that opened the door for Slovakia.
Yeah.
I didn't love his gold medal game either. I thought he looked
the late goal
nervous.
from Parise.
Yeah.
Well, that one was the one before that sort of stemmed the tide and the momentum to go back to make it 2-1. I didn't like that goal. So okay, that's fair. And again, but I think you got to honor the fact that he was a goalie who did it for 20 years.
Yeah.
At a very, very high level.
Yep.
Weird saga where signs a contract that's way too long, sort of at the tail end of when those contracts were in vogue. They name him the captain of the team as the goaltender.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
What about the 4-year stretch where he plays 72, 75, 76, and 73?
Yeah, so
that's a lot.
He's a workhorse.
He's
one of the last workhorses.
He's certainly one of the last guys that would have rocked 70 in goal.
Yeah,
for sure. The other thing with Luongo over the depth of his career, Islanders, Vancouver, Florida, not exactly at times where Vancouver, that market was decent.
Yeah.
You know, in that sort of late 2000s, early 2010s type thing. Yeah, they have a cup final. They mix in a couple of, with the Bruins or whatever. Just never played in the marquee. It never played in the market that could really solidify it for, you play on the West Coast and here in Canada anyways. You play in Vancouver and you live in Toronto, it doesn't exist.
Also want to give a shout out to Peterborough's own Steve Larmer because I always felt that
should be a Hall of Famer.
I think he should be, and I think he was one of the original players who just didn't play long enough. Like I think he finished with 450 goals or something.
Look at Steve's numbers; they're sneaky good.
Didn't hang around. It was like boom, boom, boom. I'm just going to be really good. I'm going to score 35 to 40 goals and get 80 to 90 points every single year.
Yeah, 83 Rookie of the Year.
Yeah,
I mean the guy's sitting on top of. What did he have? 882 games in a row or something? You know,
voluntarily sat out because they were screwing him in Chicago.
Yeah. So a guy that's got there's got to be some there's certainly some backbone there.
Yeah.
There's some integrity
Canada Cup,
there.
Right?
Canada Cup. Yeah.
Iconic performance.
And don't undersell that Canada Cup.
Nope.
Holy smokes! You see that lineup? You ever watch those clips?
Well, that was the tournament where I think Gretzky gets hurt. And then it's kind of up in the air a little bit. And
91, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then our guy steps up and has like a remarkable tournament.
Gary Suter.
Yeah.
Hit Gratz. A forever marked man.
I later read in Chris Chelios' book that he invited Gary Suter to come up to his Hockey Hall of Fame induction. And Gary was still nervous. Like 20-some years later. Wow, I'm the one guy who took out Wayne Gretzky.
And Korea. He did both.
Yeah.
Jobbed them both.
All right.
Jeepers.
Let's get real for a second here when we talk about the NBA. Kevin Durant has voiced his opinion that he wants to be traded from the Brooklyn Nets. Doesn't totally shock me. That's been a little bit of a circus. Wow, that's been a lot of a circus.
Yeah.
He's played 42 games with Kyrie in 3 years.
Yeah. So he comes out and says, okay, I'm done with it. I'm going. Which is similar to James Harden sort of did the same thing mid-season where he looked around and said, no, I'm not a fan.
That's out.
Toronto being a destination for Kevin Durant is interesting because I believe if you read all the tea leaves, he was kind of a Raptors fan growing up.
Yeah.
Vince Carter fan, like the purple and the Barney era.
Yeah.
Not that that totally matters, but he's got a little soft spot for Toronto. Now, get a load of this. On Monday, Fox Sports' Chris Broussard made some comments about the city of Toronto and Canada when discussing the possibility of Durant being traded to the Raptors. This was on the show First Things First. This is a direct quote. Great city, but it's not America. And you feel it when you're there, I'm telling you, especially as an African American. It's a different type of situation than African Americans are used to being in. That, according to Chris Broussard, immediately, almost universally slammed by every writer, not even Canadian, but Stephen A. Smith came on and said Toronto is special.
And Stephen A. has been pretty critical of like the Raptors and Toronto in general.
I mean, the case he lays out is the Raptors were unable to keep Stoudemire, Carter, McGrady, Bosch. I think all of those scenarios, the only time I felt like a cultural part came in was Antonio Davis, who didn't want his kids to learn the metric system in French.
Oh, that's right.
That was the only time where I ever remember, I might have dreamt the metric one, but definitely French had something to do with it.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Where even he's sort of backtracked a little bit in recent years, but he said, look, hey, I was a young parent and I was trying to make decisions for my kids. And you know what? Maybe that was the best. And I think he ended up in Chicago. But I don't know in today's day and age, especially under Masai Ujiri, who has done such a great job at globalizing the brand of the Toronto Raptors, along with as much as I don't like him, Drake and all this stuff. But I mean, to come out and make this comment, in my opinion, these sports shows are basically like wrestling. And I'm going to yell the loudest and say the most ridiculous thing. And you made a point off air. When you're being told your take is too ridiculous by Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless, you've blown past the line.
You're in the stratosphere now of insanity. Maybe, and I'll never know, obviously, what it's like to be a person of color in any city, let alone any place on the planet. But I'm positive that he's probably treated more poorly because of hot sports takes like that than he would be on the color of his skin. There's no place on earth that's perfect, but if he had come out and said, I think it's a different place, a different market for Kevin Durant, considering the way that the Toronto Raptors fans cheered when Durant tore his ACL in the final. I think if he had to come out with that, I can 100% get behind that. I think there may be, for a guy like KD, that's not sour grapes. Sorry, that's you're hurting feelings then.
Yep.
You know, but I think if you were to poll 1,000 people that cheered at that game, if you were to find 1,000 people, take them out, put them in the cone of silence and say, okay, look, were you more cheering because Durant was hurt or because you understood that probably cements your opportunity to win the title?
Yeah. And it wasn't a good look, and I think anyone would say that it probably wasn't a good look.
No,
but
sure, terrible look, and that's okay.
But to default to, which, by the way, Toronto, I mean, I've seen articles floating around. I can't quote them directly, but, I mean, let's just acknowledge Toronto is one of the most diverse cultural cities in the world.
Right.
Let's acknowledge Boston is literally in their division, maybe the whitest city on the planet.
Yeah.
And for the hardiest white, like European white.
Like Bill Burr screaming at you everywhere you go.
Right.
Irish.
Right. Trust me, that is a tough place to play.
I loved watching the clip, though, when Broussard makes this case. Almost everyone on the panel, including Nick Wright, the host, almost makes this like, ooh. And you mentioned Don Cherry earlier. You know, sometimes you'd cross the line and you just see Ron's face where it's like,
starts squirming.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what happened. And there's been a bunch of clips going around. I mentioned the Stephen A. one. There was also a clip of the Memphis Grizzlies who they were asking, you know, what was your favorite team dinner of the year? And it was Toronto. And they said it was like the greatest thing that they had ever done. They didn't get too specific. It almost seemed like they had gone to strip clubs or something.
Sure.
High class.
I saw
Zanzibar, isn't it? Toronto?
I saw a good one on Twitter. It was Chris Broussard a couple years ago when the Raptors were playing Philly in the playoffs. After they went down 2-1, he talks about how this franchise sucks and they'll never win anything and yada, yada, yada. This is why guys don't stay. And I'm just laughing looking back at it, knowing what happened.
Right.
But, I mean, someone on Twitter said, like, some girl from Toronto must have broken this guy's heart. Because there's no other reason for this hate.
Yeah, could be. Never thought of that.
Well, I think it's still far-fetched that Kevin Durant becomes a member of the Toronto Raptors, but that being said, I don't think it has anything to do with... By the way, in today's world, I mean, no offense, I don't want to create content for our American friends, but the fact that it's not America might actually be going in the right direction.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Based on some of the recent headlines of what's going on.
Honestly.
And then there's two camps. There's the trade Scotty Barnes for Kevin Durant camp, and then there's the don't trade Scotty Barnes. And that seems to be what the big divide is among fans.
You know what's, there is something, I don't know, there's an intangible with Scotty Barnes, and I'm only on the periphery of like really getting into the weeds on NBA. But there is something different about Barnes, and I'm not quite sure what it is, but I think for me, with like, at least, you know what, as a sidebar to this with Durant, it almost makes me feel like Anthopoulos used to make me feel. You know, like when you were a fan of the team, when you're a fan, you're thinking like, oh, our GM's in the hunt. But like, I feel like Masai, because Masai has been a big game hunter before and pulled it off.
Absolutely. Yep.
I think it's fun that Masai's kind of like, he's in the periphery.
Yeah.
Like, his ears are on, his eyes are open.
He's one of, if not the most respected executive in the entire sport.
Yeah.
So I think that's fun
Yeah.
for a fan base to understand that.
It's different than having Glenn Grunwald, knock down your
Yeah,
door.
going back to that about not being able to keep Stoudemire and Carter. I mean, go back and have a look at some of that chaos in the first decade of Raptors Nation.
They're leaking that Vince Carter's mom has a parking space.
Yeah, like,
and
get out of here.
a lot of craziness going on.
I look at it, and like for me, the question is like, do you want Kevin Durant? Obviously, he's like an all NBA player, but he's 33 and forces his way out of everywhere.
What's the legacy play on KD here?
He wants to go somewhere, I heard, with 2 All-Stars.
Oh, like
Nice.
everybody, sure.
He's ring chasing.
He's ring chasing because he's out of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He tried it his own way. OKC was the only one where they had a genuine opportunity to build something special there before Westbrook went weird and before Harden became better than the 6th man of the year.
Yeah.
They have Golden State on the ropes in 15. They get beat 3-1. They're up. They get beat. Boom, it's over. Then he goes over and he hunts with Golden State. They lose, win-win. Or no, they win-lose, right? With Golden State. Okay, now I'm a made man. Same, and then he found another made man in Kyrie. Kyrie thought he was made because he had LeBron. He clearly forgot that once he got out from LeBron's shadow, there's nowhere left to hide.
Yeah.
But now they've had the ring circus. Now you've had the circus, the freak show here. Jeepers. Now he's going to leave Brooklyn. If he doesn't find a place with 2 All-Stars and they start to win, his career is going to be for speculation for years.
I forgot about the Brooklyn Nets roster until I recently played against them in NBA 2K. And they've got like Blake Griffin
Brooke
coming off the
Lopez.
bench. And like Patty Mills is on that team.
Yeah.
Like Seth Curry. Like, oh my God. It's such a deep team and they couldn't make it work.
They still won less than 40 games.
Looking at baseball, quick transition here. The Jays pitching. Are you concerned with where they're at right now? Alek Manoah, excellent sophomore season. I think Gosman's actually been a pleasant surprise. His record doesn't bear it out, but he's got a nice ERA. Other than that, I mean, Jose Barrios,
Bad.
I want to think that he figures it out. ERA ballooned to north of 5.5.
He started out rough too. First game of the year.
Makes me cringe.
Yep.
Rio, we know he's out, but
done.
he wasn't very good
No.
beforehand. There has to be a play here for a pitcher.
Well, I saw a tweet from Ricky Romero saying if Kikuchi can figure it out, he's great. And I'm like, isn't that the story of your career, Ricky?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Remember that year? What did Romero go out to, like 7-1? But there was whispers in baseball, and that last year he was there. There's whispers like it's smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
Like this,
Like he doesn't have ace stuff.
Yeah.
He's a bulldog.
Right.
But eventually that
catches up with
catches
you.
up to you.
So, and the other thing with Manoah, like the fastball just keeps getting slower and slower. You know, it does. Like there's a marked decrease in the heater. This has got to be worrisome for a team that, again, in April, Romero has 10 saves. Adam Simber looks all quality. Tim Mazes, Deese, Trent Thornton, like all manageable characters, but winning solves everything, so everybody looks better.
I just get concerned that the division is so competitive too.
You're going to have 4 playoff teams.
We knew that going into the season, but you don't want to get like they're just barely holding off Tampa Bay as we record this. Suddenly you get behind, the Yankees, the Red Sox, Tampa Bay. Like, it's tough to leapfrog that much.
And I understand.
Well, nobody's catching the Yankees. Are they?
No.
No, what are the Yankees?
As of today, Tuesday, they're 13 games up on the Red Sox.
Yeah,
right. Were they 27 games of 500 or something?
58 and 22.
Yes, 26. So I like the other thing. Go and look at the Yankees bullpen. You talk about winning, solving everything, but Clay Holmes is automatic, and Michael King is automatic. Like, these aren't guys that are coming into ball games that are 8-1. These guys are coming into ball games that are 2-1 in Yankee Stadium on Sunday Night Baseball, and they're closing the door.
Yeah.
Ricky Romero, cheapers.
Now we got Ricky and
Jordan Romano.
Ray.
Yeah, Ray Romano. Kid. Jordan Romano, 10 saves in April, and he's got 3 since, and I know because I have him in fantasy baseball.
Ouch.
I just dropped him this week, and now I know all 9 guys will be salivating like, oh, he's going to make it back. No, it's over.
Matt.
Romano's going to lose his closing job.
We got an email here.
Oh, do we?
I don't know if we're ready for that.
You've got mail.
This was Sean H. We sort of jumped on this right off the hop. He says, why are Nadal and Djokovic so hard to beat even though they're so old? I'll tell you why they are so good in majors, and that's because you need to beat them 3 out of 5 sets.
Yeah.
That's right.
They lose in ATP tournaments, frequently enough. But we saw it, especially in the Djokovic match against Jannik Sinner, where, he loses the first 2 sets, and you're thinking, oh, okay, like maybe he's done. Like, no.
Yeah.
You see the mental wilt of when they win that 3rd set, and we saw it with Nadal in Australia, even against a player as great as Daniil Medvedev, where there's a mentality confidence thing that, okay, guess what? You're not going to beat me another set. So
right.
It doesn't really matter. And it's really something to behold. And if anything, tennis is a sport of confidence.
Sure.
And the second you win that rally or that game or you're able to break, like, you just see it switch on a dime. And I've seen it with Djokovic so many different times. At the French Open against Tsitsipas, same thing. I think he was down 2-0. And I remember actually texting in real time with my friend that he's the only player I've watched that, like, he could be down, 5-1 in the 3rd set. Like, I don't believe it till it's done. Like,
sure.
He's that resilient, which is crazy. But it's been a fun tournament to watch. Not great for Canadian players, but you know what? Shaping up to be a nice little final there.
Is the reason, so going back to what Sean's mentioned there, is it because there are no Americans? Is the advent of 90s tennis, not the advent of it, but the popularity of 90s tennis because you had so many Americans at the front? Because you had Jim Courier, you had Agassi, you had Pete Sampras. Today's iteration, you've got a kid from Spain, you've got Switzerland, you've got
I think
Djokovic?
there is a
Denmark,
Serbia,
that's right.
I think there's a school of thought that admires the great 3, and then there's another school of thought who think that the great 3 are not great for the game because they've basically overstayed 3 generations of players.
Sure.
Yeah.
And you're not going to, while you admire it going on, the level of dominance has been so that it's been difficult to conjure up other forms of rivalry for kids who are, under 25.
Sure.
Like, by every letter of the law, I say 3 generations. We talked about Milos Raonic earlier. He was supposed to be part of the next crowd, him and Kei Nishikori and Marin Cilic. And that was supposed to be the next crowd. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, no, they're not quite good enough. And now you're into another one with, Zverev and Dominic Thiem. And Medvedev's the one guy who I think is on that level and could win 4 or 5, maybe. But now they've basically, all of those players are 27, 28 now.
Yeah.
And now you're looking at, Garfin and Shapovalov and Auger Aliassime. And, are those going to be... It's just amazing.
What happens to this sport when those 3 are done and Serena
That's the
Williams
problem.
is done?
That's the problem.
Like, does anybody watch?
I don't know. It's going to be hard to get in.
This is the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
This is very much so the PGA Tour, right? This would be the equivalent of having Tiger and Jack golf together in the same decade, the same way it was for like Nicklaus and Palmer and Trevino. All those guys all golf together. Guys still won into the 1980s. Go back and have a look at like that late 80s, early 90s roster and how many of the guys that are winning are in their mid to late 30s.
Yeah.
There's nobody controlling the game. Tiger comes in the late 90s and just roars through everybody. What, you don't like that pun?
Unintended.
Thank you.
Not unintended. Intended.
Intended.
Yeah.
But now you're long on the other side of Tiger. Now you've got the great divide here between guys that are playing on LIV and guys that are playing on the PGA, and some of your better players are not as noticeable.
Mm-hmm.
But these three guys, how many majors they have between the three of them?
You've got 22 and then 20 and 20.
Right?
So you got 62.
These are three careers that wouldn't happen necessarily in a generation. You know, every generation might have one. Here we've got three.
They have 15 years of majors between.
Yeah.
I think they've won 60 of 72. Something crazy like that.
Or 15. If you do the math, 62 divided by 4, that's 15 and a half years of majors.
Matt, fair or foul?
Let's get it.
Quickly.
Now, to be fair.
To be fair.
To be fair. Foul!
Joey Chestnut being considered an athlete.
Finally, we get to talk about it.
I can't believe you added this.
I've been waiting all show.
Well, we're
I'm
almost,
only going to give you a minute.
Yeah,
here.
we're against the clock, so make it
Joey
quick.
Chestnut on crutches snaps the neck of a protester mid-competition.
Yeah, what was that?
And still eats
That smelled like a
63
work.
hot dogs in 10 minutes. Yeah, it's not the world record of 76. Yeah, it's not even in his top 10. It's the first time he's had to snap a protester's neck. It's the first time he's ever been on crutches. This was his flu game.
Oh my God.
It's unbelievable.
You know what? No, you know what's unbelievable
He
is
has
like
won, the fact that he's won 15 of 16
Matt's
hot dog
obsession
I
eating
with
know
this.
the passion you have for this guy.
There is
Like,
no single more dominant athlete on this planet than Joey Chestnut.
I've watched Rome for a long time, and Rome has laid out some resumes on guys when they've been on the phone. That 45-second, 30-second clip that you could be signed by Joey's group.
Thank you.
No. What do you mean, thank you? The guy
It would
showed
be
up
an
on
honor.
crutches.
The guy has so many food eating records.
And
I would love to work for him.
That's 100% of work on the protest. What's the guy protesting anyways?
So Death Star, I don't know.
Forget it.
Couldn't care to look at it, but and he still beat the second place guy by 20. He's won 15 out of 16 hot
There
dog
needs
eating
to be
contests.
a
where's
Pepsi for
Kobayashi?
this he's suing. Like
I know,
apparently they
that's what I mean.
sabotaged his career, and
Yeah, that's
that
what I
should have
know.
been the natural
he
rivalry.
couldn't hang with Joey Jaws and got sad about
I
it.
remember one year he got taken out in cuffs, and like just the whole thing is crazy.
The whole thing, yeah, it is a wild, wild thing. To
What
watch.
kind of wiener do they eat anyways? Is
The
it like
Nathan's
Sabret's?
world-famous
Oh,
hot
it's
dogs.
Nathan's. That's right.
Come on, it's on the jersey.
Fair or foul, MJ to be on the cover of NBA 2K23. Quickly,
Because it's 23. Is that it?
Yeah, is that why?
I guess.
Okay,
Sure.
because
I think it's hair MJ too, not even bald MJ. I think it's like 80s hair MJ.
Is that right? I can get behind it then.
I know there's a rap line. Somebody says they turned 23. It's their Jordan year. So
Okay.
I guess we can go with that.
I can get behind it. Fair.
All right, it is time for our Mano a Mano showdown.
Oh, here we go.
In honor of the National Hockey League draft, number 1 overall draft picks.
Who's going first? Loser goes first?
So the way this works, it's mano a mano. I've got a list in front of me of everybody who's ever been drafted number 1 overall, and you guys go back and forth, and you get 3 strikes. And
Yeah,
you've got
Latour-
10 minutes, so I'm not waiting around. You literally have 15
Latour,
seconds.
get your page open.
I'll close everything right
don't-
now.
don't-
Yeah.
Goodbye, Claude Giroux. Goodbye, Roberto Luongo. Shane Wright's out of here.
Yeah.
Slavkovsky, get out.
Okay. First round picks, I'll go first.
There you go.
Guy Lafleur.
Guy Lafleur, 1971. Yes.
Connor McDavid.
Connor McDavid. Yes.
Joe Thornton.
Joe Thornton, 97. Yes.
Sidney Crosby.
Sidney Crosby. Yes.
Alex Ovechkin.
Yes.
Owen Power.
Wow, going recent. Yes.
Matt Sundin.
Wow. Yes.
Aaron Ekblad.
Yes. 2014 for Ekblad.
Doug Wickenheiser.
Pulling that one out of his bag early.
That's
Yes.
1980.
John
Yes.
Tavares.
John Tavares, yes.
Mario Lemieux.
Mario, yes. By the way, fun Wickenheiser note, they took him instead of Denny Savard or Dave Babbage.
Correct. And people in Montreal were furious.
Not great.
Denny Savard.
What? You just skipped me? What's going on here?
No.
Patrick
No, he
Kane.
was meaning. Patrick Kane.
2008, 7.
Yes. Little suspense for you. Little suspense.
Eric Lindros.
Eric Lindros, yes.
That's a good one.
I'm interested to see which eras you gravitate towards.
I don't think I've gotten anything
or
before
Mark's
2000
been all over
yet.
the board.
Yeah.
I'm gonna buzz you in 2 seconds if you don't give me somebody.
2 seconds? Hold on. We get Marc-Andre Fleury.
Yes.
Gord Kluzak.
Yes.
Oh, this guy
Randomly.
sucks.
82.
Austin Matthews.
Yes.
Brian Lawton.
Yes. Iserman draft.
Correct.
Nico Herscher?
Yes. That's a random one.
That is a random one.
It's not gonna look out great, I don't think.
No.
Alexander Dag.
Yes.
Neil Yakupov.
Yes.
Patrick Steffen.
Yes.
Ryan Nugent-Hopkins.
Yes.
Pierre Turgeon.
Yes.
Taylor Hall.
Yes. Oh, it's rapid fire.
Now it's rapid fire. I'm going to have to reload the chamber here. What do we got? Billy Harris. 72.
Yes.
Rasmus Dahlin.
Yes.
Greg Jolly. 77.
No. Oh, 74.
74.
But that's okay.
Oh, that should be. That
No,
should be
get
a
out of
Come
here.
on.
So keep reading your Google page.
I don't have anything open.
Come on, Joey
Keep
Chestnut.
going.
Come on.
Joey Chestnut would go first overall. First off. Oh, this is where I'm in trouble because I've exhausted every year that I know. Steve Yzerman? Yeah.
You just
Now-
said the
now-
Iserman draft was 83. Brian Lawton. went
Now,
there.
now this is when it goes downhill.
Rick DiPietro.
Yes.
Rick DiPietro. That hurts. Evgeny Malkin. No.
Oh boy, he's in trouble now. He's swimming.
Oh, Nolan.
Yes.
Igor Kovalchuk?
Yes. I'm gonna have to ask you to submit your answer, sir.
Give me
Should we ring him up?
I think that's a strike.
wait.
no.
McAdam.
No. Hold on a
Al
second.
McAdam.
We just hit the dead error alert on your
Al
TV.
McAdam. What? Where? I don't. I've
He'd be
never
early
heard of that
70s.
guy.
That's garbage.
Oh, it's
I don't find him on here.
We'll play this game under protest now. Because I was
Right.
hurt.
Come on, Matt. You need one to stay alive here.
Oh, gosh.
I've got one to win it.
Marcel Dion?
No,
That's the Fleur.
that was the Guy Lafleur year.
Réjean Houle.
Rajon Uhl with the big W.
Yeah.
Notable names still on the board: Wendell Clark, Mike Modano,
Oh, I should have taken Lafreniere.
one of your favorites of all time, Roman Hammerlick,
Oh, that's right, 92.
Ed Jovanovski, Brian Berard, Chris Phillips, Vincent LeCavalier,
How did I forget Eric Johnson?
Rick
Yeah,
Nash.
Johnson.
Anybody?
That's the one I couldn't remember. I had pretty much 2000 to 2020.
Taylor Hall, Nathan McKinnon,
I said Taylor
Yeah,
Hall.
Taylor
did
got
we have
named,
that?
Yeah.
McKinnon.
Jack Hughes. We didn't go to
I
him.
struck between Hughes. I couldn't remember if it was Hughes or Eichel, so I stayed away.
So you went
Eichel was the
Rajon
Matthews
Uhl,
year.
Réjean Houle's 68?
69.
69.
Gilbert Perreault.
Oh, yeah,
Danny
Perot's
Potvin,
70. Potvin, yeah.
Dale McCourt, Bobby Smith, Dale Howardchuk. Anybody?
Howard Chuck.
Anybody
great.
take Lindros?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
did early
91.
on.
I'm looking past. Oh, nobody said Lemieux.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark said Lemieux.
Oh, did he? I don't listen.
There was too many right answers. You were too paying attention.
You guys went on a clinic there for a minute.
Holy. That was...
Steven
soon as I remember-
Stamkos?
Yeah, Stamkos.
As soon as I remembered that Edmonton had back to back to back, I was
that's
like, I can
what-
hit those three quick.
Yeah, and that's what, Mark, you basically did that with the Nordiques, right? They had 3 in a row from 89
right.
to 91.
Yeah.
Just some funny names looking back, too, when you talk about, like Roman Hammerlock. Like, are you super happy with that first overall pick? Like, I don't know. You're okay?
I mean, have a look through what's that, 92 that year?
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a lot to choose from there.
Neil Yakupov, like that's an all-time first overall.
Him and
boss.
Patrick Steffen are the two worst.
Stefan, cheapers.
Yeah, I mean, Daggy's up there.
They went Hammerlock. You could have went Yashin.
Yeah, well, Yashin didn't turn out. He turned out the dancing bear claws, right? Like
Kasperitis, Corey Stillman,
yeah.
Sergei Gonchar. Maybe he goes one. Martin Straka. So you had other options. I'm just wondering, when you get that defenseman who's like a steady 1,000-game guy,
Sure.
you happy?
Yeah. Is Hammerlick, to put the bow on it here, will he be a Shane Wright type guy? Is he a 1,000-gamer, but he's a Bob Gainey? You know, where he can play all ends of the ice, he can score, but he doesn't fill the net?
If the Habs draft a Bob Gainey in this draft, I'm pretty happy.
I would think so.
I think you're going to get a little bit more offensive upside from Shane Wright.
Sure.
I think you're going to get 30 goals, 80 points, and the face of your franchise.
Roman Hammerlick not retiring until less than 10 years ago is so crazy to me. 2012, 13.
I put him in the Chris Phillips category. Again,
Yeah.
good career.
Yeah.
Are you super thrilled with that as a number one overall? You're not disappointed.
Not
but you're
every
not...
number one can be Sidney Crosby.
No, it's true.
That's what you got
that's
to
true.
remember.
But you hope.
You can hope.
One can only hope.
Even Chris Phillips played till 2015. That's absurd.
Steady defenseman.
I saw my man Datsuk this week finally retired. 26 seasons.
26 seasons.
Over
Yeah.
in the KHL. By the way, if you like our banter about old school hockey, we have a special program coming up either next week or in a couple of weeks.
You're the boss.
Okay.
Tell me when.
It might be next week. It's the Capital PTBO Ultimate Hockey Draft. We're going to pick from every name ever to lace them up in the National Hockey League. And that's going to be a lot of fun.
And there's some big omissions.
There's some omissions. There's some fighting.
There's some
it's
big
crazy.
takes.
And keep an eye on social media as well. We'll be posting all the lineups. You be the
Yeah.
judge of who's the best.
You're the judge.
Yeah.
Ultimately, right? I feel good. You feel good. Matt feels good. This has been a fun show, guys. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Tennis and hot dog eating. I could do this every week.
Talk about the dog days of summer.
Dog days.
That's where we're going.
I like it.
This has been the Capital PTBO Sports Show, an MNC podcast production, available wherever you do your podcast downloading and broadcasting on your TV, Peterborough Lindsay, from the Capital PTBO at 370 George Street. For Mark Million and Matt Latour, I'm Jordan Mercier. We will talk again next week.